Morning broke over Seoul, but for Daniel Williams, the day began long before light ever touched the skyline. He stood shirtless in the center of his penthouse, muscles taut and coiled, his fists wrapped with custom steel-weighted knuckles. He moved in silence, shadowboxing like a phantom at war, each punch slicing through air with lethal grace. Sweat glistened down his back, but his breathing was steady, controlled, calculated. This was ritual. A soft vibration echoed from the glass table. Daniel picked up the burner phone, flipping it open mid-motion. "Lee Min-kyu," he said. A younger voice answered, loyal, efficient. "He's in." Name Choi Dong-wook, former gangster, now head of security for Myri Industrial. Drives a Jaguar. He was the star witness at the trial. Daniel's eyes narrowed. "I remember." Min-kyu continued, voice colder now. "He didn't just testify. He painted your father as a butcher. Claimed he paid for hits, showed doctored footage. That video, that lie, it broke the court. The media crucified your father before the verdict." Daniel's jaw clenched, his eyes sharpening like blades. "He sold my father's legacy for a paycheck." "The coordinates are sent," Min-kyu said. "He'll be alone in his office by 9. And boss, this guy's hands aren't clean. He's earned what's coming." Daniel didn't reply. He ended the call, then reached for his second phone. "Get the car," he said coldly. "Load the black kit." "Yes, sir." The Genesis G90 cut through the East District like a shadow, black and gleaming under the morning haze. Daniel sat in the back, dressed in a black suit, gloves pulled tight over his fingers. The hilt of a silver combat blade pressed cool against his thigh. He wasn't just going to kill a man. He was going to send a message. The car pulled into an underground parking garage beneath Myri Industrial. Daniel exited, silent as breath, and moved with precision through an auxiliary entrance. No alarms. No resistance. Min-kyu had sent the schematics and reset the internal systems. When Choi Dong-wook finally arrived, he didn't expect to find a ghost waiting. He unlocked his office and stepped inside, then froze. Daniel Williams was seated behind his desk. The overhead light flickered. Daniel didn't move. He sat with one leg crossed over the other, gloved hands resting calmly. Choi's blood ran cold. "Who the hell are you?" Choi asked. "Close the door," Daniel said. Choi obeyed without thinking, hands trembling as he pressed the door shut. Sweat bloomed on his forehead. That voice. That presence. "That's impossible. You're dead. I saw it." Daniel stood slowly. The chair creaked behind him. He moved around the office like a predator circling prey, brushing a trophy off balance, touching a photo frame. Then Choi gasped when he saw his face clearly. You're him. You're still alive." Daniel smiled, cold and hollow. "Nice office," he said casually. "Elegant. Sterile. I wonder how many families you ruined to earn it." "Why are you alive?" Choi rasped, stepping back. Daniel took a slow step forward. "Oh, I've risen from the dead," he said with a smirk. "I am his son, the man you betrayed, framed, humiliated. My father." Choi's breath caught. "So, he had a son. He hid you deeply." "Yeah, he did." Daniel stepped closer. The blade was at Choi's throat before he could blink. Choi's hand inched toward his desk. "If I were you, I wouldn't," Daniel whispered. Choi froze as the blade pressed enough to draw a thin red line. Daniel leaned in, voice low and cold. "You told the world my father was a murderer. You said he ordered the death of a journalist. You showed that fake video, claimed you were there. But it was you. You pulled the trigger. And you took the deal. You made him the devil instead of you." Choi shook. I had no choice." "You had a choice," Daniel hissed. "But you chose them." He pulled the blade away, only to slam the hilt into Choi's temple. The man collapsed, groaning. Daniel crouched beside him, meeting his eyes. "You know the difference between you and my father?" he whispered. "My father protected the weak. You exploited them." Choi's eyes fluttered open, and he saw Daniel kneeling beside him. Panic seized him, and he scrambled backward, only to be dragged back by his hair. "Please, I have a family," Choi stammered, tears streaming down his face. "Think of my children, my wife. I'll do anything, just please." Daniel's expression remained implacable. "Oh, so you do have a family," he said, his voice a chilling mockery of concern. "He had one too. But you didn't spare him. So why should I?" Daniel's fists moved with methodical precision. He broke Choi's fingers one by one, savoring the man's cries of agony. He struck Choi in the ribs, listening to the sickening crack of bone. "I watched my mother bury a mannequin because there was no body to honor. He was buried in a foreign land, and I also watched the media turn my father's name into a curse thanks to you." Choi's body spasmed with each blow. Blood trickled from his mouth as he begged for mercy, his words turning into a garbled, desperate plea. "Please, I beg you, don't do this." Daniel ignored his pleas. He dragged Choi across the room, the man's body leaving a smear of blood on the pristine floor. He slammed Choi against the wall, the impact making him whimper. "There's a saying," Daniel said, his voice low and menacing. "An eye for an eye," gripped Choi's hair and lifted his head. The man's eyes were swollen with terror, his face a mask of blood and tears. "And justice," Daniel whispered, his blade a whisper against Choi's throat, "requires a mark." The final stroke was clean, silent, and utterly without remorse. Daniel watched as the light faded from Choi's eyes, leaving behind only an empty shell. He reached into his coat and pulled out a porcelain mask which was white, smooth, and marked by a single red slash across the left eye. He placed it beside Choi's body, and then disappeared like a ghost avenging the dead. Daniel walked to the parking garage of Myri Industrial, his body still filled with adrenaline. He got into the back of the waiting G90. "To the clubhouse," he told the driver. As the car sped through the city, Daniel stared out the window at the city lights. He had a flashback. He remembered getting a call from the post office to let him know about a package he had there. He was surprised because he wasn't expecting anything. The package was from someone unknown. It had the names and pictures of the people who had destroyed his father's reputation and then had killed him when he went to prison. The letter that accompanied it said, "Kill these people. They sent your father to his doom." He didn't know who sent it to him, but from that moment, he made up his mind to avenge his father. That same morning, at Williams Group headquarters, Lily Park sat behind her sleek black desk, the skyline behind her office stretching out in sharp lines through the glass wall. Her fingers moved steadily across her keyboard, eyes skimming through the latest product strategy documents, when her office door burst open. Leah, her loyal assistant, marched in, dragging a young man by the collar. His face was bruised, his tie twisted, panic written all over him. "I caught a mole," Leah said flatly, throwing him onto the floor. The man stumbled, landing hard with a grunt. Before he could scramble to his feet, Leah kicked him again, this time square in the chest. He gasped, curling up on the floor. Lily didn't even blink. She stood slowly, walking around her desk, her stilettos clicking with precision on the marble floor. "Name?" she asked without looking at the man nor Leah. "Kim Jae-won," Leah replied. Lily moved from her seat and crouched in front of him, her expression unreadable as she grabbed his jaw and turned his face up to meet hers. "Sending out our product data, huh?" she said quietly. "Let me guess, you sent it to Neon Technologies, right?" Jae-won didn't respond, his breathing ragged, eyes darting from Lily to Leah in fear. Lily's voice dropped. "It's unfortunate you chose the wrong side." She rose to her feet with elegance, brushing her hands together as though ridding herself of filth. Then, with a simple nod to Leah, she said coldly, "End him." Without hesitation, Leah pulled the small pistol tucked behind her blazer and fired. One clean shot. Jae-won's body hit the floor with finality. Lily turned to Leah, her voice still calm. "Get his devices." Leah pulled out the mole's phone and a slim pen drive from his pocket. She connected the phone to a secure laptop she always carried, fingers flying across the keys as she hacked into his messages. "Got it," Leah said after a moment. He was sending everything to a man named Ju Hyun-woo. Works at Neon Technologies. Lives in Seocho District. His location has been sent to your phone. Lily checked the message. Her lips curved slightly, not in amusement, but in satisfaction. "Handle him," Lily said. "Make it look like a robbery. I don't want anything tracing back to us." "Consider it done," Leah responded as she made another call, her tone clipped and professional. "One target. Seocho District. Discreet. Clean it up after." As the call ended, Lily returned to her desk, completely unbothered by the lifeless body on her office floor. "Clean this mess up," she said without looking back. "And tell security to double-check the rest of the IT department. I don't want another rat slipping through." Leah nodded once and got to work. In Williams' group, betrayal didn't go unpunished, and Lily Park made sure of that. 10 minutes later, after Daniel had left the scene, Detective Jang Dae-hyun stood over the body of Choi Dong-wook. The office was a slaughterhouse. Blood on the walls. Furniture overturned. The corpse looked like it had fought a demon, and lost. No prints. No footage. No witnesses. Just the mask. Jang stared at it through a plastic evidence bag. "This wasn't just a hit," he muttered. His junior officer looked pale. "No entry logs. No alerts. It's like he walked through the walls." Jang didn't answer immediately. He stared out the window, eyes narrowed. "This is personal," he said finally. "And whoever left this," he turned back to the mask, something old and cold stirring in his gut, "is just beginning." When Daniel arrived at the clubhouse, a figure emerged from the shadows, a composed man in a tailored suit. It was Min, the man who managed the place for Daniel. "Welcome to South Korea, Mr. Williams," Min said, his voice respectful. "Everything is prepared." Daniel nodded curtly. "Take me to the detached room." Min led him through the opulent, yet subdued interiors of the clubhouse, a stark contrast to the grim purpose of their meeting. They arrived at a reinforced door, separate from the main club. Inside, Min-kyu was waiting, a tablet in his hands. "The prosecutor, Kim Tae-jun," Min-kyu said, his voice tight with controlled anger. "He's at his residence today. It's his day off." He displayed the tablet, showing the prosecutor's house, its location, and security details. Daniel studied the information, his expression hardening. "Security. Heavy," Min-kyu admitted, "but manageable. We have a plan." Daniel's eyes gleamed coldly. "Then let's not waste any more time." The convoy of 2 vans and the Genesis moved silently to Kim Tae-jun's residence, which is located at Gangnam. As they approached the property, Daniel's men leapt into action. 2 guards near the gate were taken out with suppressed shots. The next wave came rushing out, 6 men, all armed. The courtyard erupted into chaos. Gunfire cracked. Daniel moved like a shadow through the battle, flanking from the side with 2 of his own. One of his men was hit, but they pushed forward. Bako, normally the driver, tossed a flashbang into the entry hall. It burst in a white-hot flash, and Daniel's team stormed the interior. More guards poured in and boots slammed against the floor. The space shrank and bodies crashed into each other. Fists flew and knives flashed silver in the dim light. The air thickened with the sounds of grunts and muffled screams. Daniel's men fought like cornered beasts. They were brutal. One of them took a blade to the ribs but didn't go down. He instead grabbed his attacker by the throat, crushing it with a sickening snap before collapsing to his knees while blood was soaking up his shirt. Another man drove his knife deep into a guard's side, twisting it until the body went limp, and within minutes, silence returned. Daniel moved up the polished stairs, his boots echoing. At the end of the hallway stood an oak door. He kicked it open. Inside, Prosecutor Kim Tae-jun stood behind a massive desk, a handgun raised. Bang! The bullet grazed Daniel's shoulder. He didn't flinch. Bang! Daniel shot back. The gun flew from Kim's hand. "You," Kim snarled, blood on his lip. "You look just like Kwame. How is this possible?" Daniel stepped forward, eyes ablaze. "I am his son. You destroyed him, and now I'm here to collect the debt." Kim lunged. The fight was brutal, nothing like the sterile battles of courtrooms Kim once commanded. This was primal. Kim slammed Daniel into the bookshelf, raining punches. Daniel headbutted him, drew a knife, and slashed at his side. Kim elbowed him back, reaching for a hidden blade from his drawer. Clash. Slash. Roar. Daniel ducked, landed a punch that shattered Kim's nose, then drove his knee into the man's chest. They grappled, each choking the other, their faces twisted with rage and desperation. "Debt! You dare speak of debt?" Kim barked, spitting blood onto the floor. His eyes burned with fury. "You think your father was innocent? That he never dipped his hands into crime? Your father was a criminal." He staggered forward, voice rising to a savage roar. "I brought him to justice." Daniel growled. "Justice? You twisted the law. You knew the truth, and you buried it." Kim laughed bitterly through broken teeth. "I'd do it again." He was a fool and a weak man. Just like you'll be when they find you, and then bury you. That was the final trigger. Daniel tackled him to the ground, pinned his arms, and began the torture, controlled, precise, meant to extract every filthy secret. The blood painted the walls like vengeance itself. By the time Daniel was done, Kim Tae-jun could barely breathe. "Any regrets?" Daniel asked, his voice hoarse. Kim chuckled. A sick, mocking sound. "None. Your father died like the rat he was. And you're just the maggot he left behind." Bang. Daniel fired a final shot between his eyes. Breathing hard, he stood. Blood dripped from his face and hands. He reached into his coat and pulled out the second porcelain mask, white with a red slash across the left eye, and placed it beside the prosecutor's body. He then turned at the doorway, blood still warm on his skin. "Clean it up," he ordered, his voice cold and firm. "No imprints. No trace." Immediately, he gave his orders. His men moved swiftly. Guns and knives were wiped down and collected. Shell casings retrieved. The bodies of their own were respectfully zipped into black bags, ready to vanish with the team. Daniel took one last look at Kim Tae-jun's lifeless form. "Leave everything else." Let them see what justice looks like. He then walked out, his boots echoing again, more slowly this time. Back at Choi's office at Myri Industrial, Detective Jang stood by the shattered desk, his eyes narrowing as he examined the bloodstains and the porcelain mask left behind. Then his phone rang. "Detective Jang," he answered curtly. The voice on the other end was breathless. "Sir, another murder. Prosecutor Kim Tae-jun. Found dead in his study." Jang's expression darkened. "What?" he barked, his heart beginning to pound. "When?" "Less than an hour ago. And sir, the same mask we found at Choi's office is here." Jang didn't respond. He hung up and turned to his assistant. "You're in charge here. No one touches anything unless absolutely necessary. I'm heading out." Within minutes, he was gone. When Jang arrived at Kim Tae-jun's residence, the place was swarming with officers and crime scene investigators. He flashed his badge and pushed through the cordon. The moment he stepped into the study, he froze. There it was, resting beside Kim Tae-jun, whose face was twisted in a final grimace of pain. The same white mask with a red slash across the left eye. A chill crawled up Jang's spine. First Choi Dong-wook and now Kim Tae-jun. He turned sharply and called one of his officers at the station. "Check for any connection between Choi and Kim Tae-jun. Dig into case histories they were involved in." Minutes later, the officer called back. "Sir, both were tied to the Kwame Williams case. Choi was the gangster who testified against Kwame, claimed Kwame paid him to do illegal jobs. Kim Tae-jun was the prosecutor who used that testimony to build the case." Jang's jaw clenched. He had been right. Someone was serving justice in Kwame Williams' name, and both Choi and Kim Tae-jun had found themselves on this vigilante's hit list. He turned to one of the investigators. "Get me the full case files on the Kwame Williams trial. Everyone involved, judge, witnesses, cops, attorneys. I want names, addresses, every detail. We're dealing with someone methodical, emotionally charged. They won't stop until the list is complete." And Jang knew. If they didn't act fast, the next body was only a matter of time. That night, the chief of police made a discreet call to Chairman Kwon Tae-shik. The chairman stood on the balcony of his penthouse, dressed in a silk robe, a cigar smoldering between his fingers. The cold night air did little to cool the tension settling in his bones. He answered without looking at the screen. "Chairman, I thought you should know. Choi Dong-wook and Prosecutor Kim Tae-jun were both found dead this morning. It appears both murders are connected to the Kwame Williams case." A long silence followed. Kwon took a slow drag of his cigar, exhaling smoke into the darkness. "So," he said, his voice icy, "someone dares to stir the past." He turned slightly, his eyes narrowing with quiet fury. "Listen carefully," he continued. "You will find whoever is behind this and make them disappear." Quietly. The chief swallowed hard on the other end. "Yes, sir. I will mobilize all available." But then Kwon cut him off. "Because if you fail," he let the words hang for a moment, "you go down with us. Don't forget, Chief, you were involved 10 years ago, just like the rest of us. This person, or people, have already killed 2 of us. And I know they won't stop." "I understand," the chief said quickly, his voice tight. Kwon stubbed out the cigar on the balcony ledge, watching the embers die. "Good. Then don't call me again until it's handled." He ended the call. For a moment, Kwon stood still, the cool wind brushing against his face. Then he muttered to himself, "Kwame, although you have been dead for 10 years now, you still don't want to rest." With a heavy sigh, he lit another cigar, drawing in the smoke slowly. Far below, the city buzzed on. But up here, in the shadows of power, war had just been declared.